Welcome to the Lost Signals Discusses Film and TV. Using the revolutionary Manzur-Amosi Thurlow scale,
or MONS,
we scrupulously review these art forms with an emphasis on narrative structure. Join us for another entertaining episode.
Hello, and welcome back to the Lost Signals Discusses Film and Television. I am Chris Morgan, and I am here with Scott Thurlow.
And I am just a frog creature worker.
Jonathan Ian Manzer.
I'm No Face.
And returning again, who is more and more becoming less and less of a guest, and I mean that with all reverence.
We have to pay him shit.
That's true.
Pay me in posters. I got some more room
Pay
right
you in
over
fake
here.
gold that turns into dirt later on.
Yeah, here you go. Here's your gold.
And welcome back, Joe.
Oh, you stinky humans.
And today we are going to take a look at Hayao Miyazaki's film Spirited Away. And Ian, do you have a log line?
Alice in Fantasia.
Not bad.
Oh yeah.
I do have the Alice in Wonderland in my notes. Yep, definitely true.
And stylistically, it reminds me a little bit of Fantasia as well. So,
Yep. I'm with you.
Absolutely. So Ian, would you like to continue on and talk about the plot?
yes, but I'm not going to talk about the plot of this film. I'm going to talk about the implied plot of this film,
Okay.
and it's kind of backed up by the screenwriter of it, who kind of agrees with this ending. A young girl's family gets forced into debt with a criminal organization, gets sold into as a child prostitute in a bathhouse, which was a major source of prostitution in Edo period Japan, things like that. And it's her dealing with that, which dealing with the other prostitutes in this thing, her learning the lifestyle, but constantly wanting to go back to her family, but afraid that when she goes back, she won't even recognize them. She falls in love with her pimp, and but it turns out they're both kind of whores with the heart of gold, as that old cliche goes, and they end up escaping the lifestyle to find freedom, even though he, in the end, cannot leave that because he's so entrenched in that world. But it's all done through the perspective of a young girl whose parents turn into pigs, and gets trapped in a spirit world where she has to kind of earn her keep, and she eventually, through kindness and empathy, deals with the spirits and earns her freedom.
Brings balance to the world. Yeah, it's all that stuff with spiritual demons. So yeah, I mean, go ahead, Chris.
No, I never actually thought about that. I didn't even think about, I
Hour into this film, I'm like,
the bathhouse angle always had certain connotations to it. And
the old witch is definitely a madame.
Madam, yes.
oh yeah,
A power figure, and it's a very harrowing tale. And I think it's like a half hour, and I'm like, there's more to this than just a kids' film. And I started doing research, and it turns out that it was basically this is going to themes a little bit, but the screenwriter was talking about how he wanted to talk about consumption and consumerism in Japan through the lens of prostitution, which was a huge issue in Japan back, at least exploitative prostitution as well, not the demonized sex workers, but and I actually, it's a dark kids movie, and I don't think I would have enjoyed it. It reminded me a lot of a Don Bluth film, actually. If you his American films, and I actually like this. To me is on a level of we did American Tale, where it has that kind of deep theme, and I actually quite enjoyed this film, especially knowing that it's a tale within a tale. So either a strong 2 or a 3 for me, depending on what you guys think.
I'm with you, like on a strong 2, and could go to 3 as well. Like, yeah, it seems almost like, I don't want to say it seems obvious, but when you know, like, sort of do a little bit more research about, you said, like you said, the screenwriter, like those aspects, elements, like seem like more woven throughout. But yeah, it also is like basically a dark, like a grim style, like Alice in Wonderland, like you mentioned, like reference, like sort of fairy tale with dark elements to it, ostensibly aimed at and for like children, younger audiences, but certainly has, more serious things throughout it. But plot wise, yeah, I think like it works quite well. It's really well paced. Like maybe a little bit like towards the end of the second act, I guess I'll say, going into the third, like it's a little bit of a lull. Like for example, the segment when they're at the the good twin fairy godmother's house, I suppose I'll say, like, is like a little like could have been condensed a bit. But overall, I think it works. It flows through. Yeah, like a lot of it maybe goes with themes, like you said, which we'll talk out in a sec. But narratively wise, I'm looking at a strong 2 and possible 3. So with that, what do you rest of you guys think?
Joe?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I was thinking a little bit on that prostitution angle, and there's definitely, I think it leans more on even on more the other themes, because it's like the recurring motifs and they guide it. I don't think the story is that important. It's, the overall, this is a theme movie, and when we get to dialogue and other sections, you'll see that this is a visual and theme movie, and not really, there is a lot of plot, there's a lot of like things, but they also kind of don't matter because they kind of dissipate so fast. You have, things just float in and float out, and magical characters that aren't introduced and don't do anything, they just show up. Like the worm character or whatever it is just kind of shows up out of nowhere. He's in the background, and then he turns into a dragon, and this one turns into this, and this one becomes that, and they become the bird, and this one becomes so it's a lot of transformation. But I think when it comes to plot and narrative, it does a really good job of splitting the journey. I think it actually holds the attention on all three of them. You have the opening with the parents, and then right into there, it's like going into a tunnel, everything changes. You have these like, I'm a sucker for abandoned theme park stuff. You give me abandoned theme park, pretty much anything, I'll read it, I'll watch it, I'll look at it. I love just like whether it's the horror shows, but this one didn't feel like that much of a theme park. I wish they wanted some rides. All they did was eat, but that's not a theme park to me. Vegetarians, that's not our theme park. But no,
I'm
go
a
ahead.
sucker for a free buffet, so
Isn't that part of it, that like buffets aren't like a Japanese thing? I know that's more in the theme, but I'm pretty sure that like the overt, like having as much as you could gorge is not into the style of the people. So like they found this, like it's that, and there's the Audi in it, and it's like in a consumerism thing. I know we can go into that a little bit too.
the old woman was dressed in very Western style. Actually, considering how many other people in this were dressed in, the spirits were dressed in very traditional Japanese garb, having the madame of the brothel be very Western goes into that consumerist themes.
Yeah, and I just think it was very well delineated. I'd actually border on this overall with a 3, but I think I'm gonna lean towards the 2, like a strong 2, because I actually don't love the Haku angle. I think that's, to me, the weakest part. It's a weird, the love connection and it makes it even stronger with the prostitution case. I know they're supposed to be the same age, but he looks like they're like holding hands. Looks like a 25-year-old and a 9-year-old are walking hand in hand. And they keep holding hands. Everyone's holding hands the whole movie. I'm just like, why are they all holding hands? I don't know. So I don't know if that's leans off of negative points for, but yeah, I lean to it too, with a lot of creativity, and it definitely held my attention. Good pacing for the most part, and especially the adventure parts. I really actually thought they did a great job with those like running scenes and the stairs and the bridges. Like it all actually was very tense. So strong 2.
It's funny because the love angle, the first time I saw this, and I'm gonna give it a 3. Beth and I literally watched it 4 times this week, because we hadn't watched it in a long time. We were rotating along a while ago between Howl's Moving Castle and this, and this is one of my favorite movies of all time. But I mean, I didn't get the prostitute angle, though the connotation with the bathhouse and the servitude. Yeah, I totally got the consumerism. Totally got.
May I just make a quick point on that?
Sure.
The disgusting stink spirit puts in the bath, finds the protruding stick out of him, grasps that, offers him empathy, and literally it causes almost him ejaculating out of the bathhouse afterwards. So it's narratively, it's her be where you see all of the jaded other women around her. She shows empathy and becomes the favorite of the, which is what draws No Name, who's the rich, or who thinks wealth can buy everything, is attracted to her empathy. So
The gross river pearl that she also tastes and tests.
Yeah.
And gross or whatever. It's like coming out of the end of it. It's like
yeah,
that's all that's left.
I mean, Miyazaki does a lot of environmental. He has a lot of environment. I mean, Princess Mononoke is definitely a film that is about an industrial world versus the environment. But every one of his films has an environmental angle on it. So I never really thought about more than that than a girl who actually cares about her environment. Her parents are definitely more superficial. Like every time I hear her mom go, "It's fun to move other places," I want to be like, "Fuck you." It's like, did you get moved when you were a kid? And But to me, and I'm gonna get to this when we get to antagonists. I'll go. It's hard. It's one of these films that's hard to delineate, as you guys said, between this and themes. But it's Chihiro actually facing an unknown and figuring it out, and the love angle of it with Haku. I went from the more I watch it, the more I think it may have started with infatuation, but it became they're the first person she latched onto because she was literally disappearing. He helped save her. Um, I mean, so there's a lot to unpack here. I hearing what you guys are talking about, I'm like kind of derailed, but I was gonna, a little bit what I was gonna say. But I like the fact that everybody's kind of playing a role, which again figures into the whole brothel element because you've got Lynn who calls her a dope and all this stuff. Even when she's happy, like she goes, "I can't believe you pulled that off. You're such a dope," Um, it's just everybody is abrasive at first, and there's an underlying compassion. And I like that. And Chihiro seems to be able to pull that out of people. And nobody trusts Haku because he's Yubaba's henchman, but there's more to that as well. And to the stink spirit, who actually turns out to be a river spirit who's got a bunch of garbage on him, the way he sorry to use your word, the way he ejaculates out of the bath definitely signifies or definitely foreshadows that Haku is a river spirit as well. So I mean, structurally I think this movie's near perfect. I just what always strikes me is the levels of compassion and things that are lying under the surface and having to deal with systems. And that's probably going to go back to my antagonist, but so I'm going to stop there because we got more to unpack. I'm going to give it a 3 at the end of the day. Is everybody sticking with the 2?
Yeah, clearly you're biased. I'm sticking with strong 2, but I think any points it loses here is like easily flows into themes and other things you mentioned. So yeah, sticking with the 2, strong 2, but end of the day,
yeah, about the same.
giving it
Yeah,
a 3, Chris.
I think the 2 also. I wonder. I mean, I don't know if I'll ever get into it, but the parents like just seem like a yada yada, like a variant of a MacGuffin, where it's like that's or whatever. That's the goal of the whole movie, but like they just kind of. It's like a quick signifier that just kind of mentions them from time to time, but it's like
from the main thrust of the action, like pretty quickly. True.
But I mean, I think it is interesting. And I think, Joe, you mentioned the car. I mean, obviously, it's an Audi status symbol. Obviously, they're moving to a bigger place that's a little more secluded. They are definitely more superficial. And Chihiro at the beginning, she's just like, her mom's like, "Oh, dad gave you a rose." And she's like, "Yeah, but only one rose, never got a bouquet." You could always see that she's like flipped, even between there because she's missing her friend who gave her the bouquet and the status of it. So I feel like she starts off where she's walking between two worlds, which, thematically, we're going to go to Joe with the rest of the themes.
Yes. So yeah, I mean, I think movie is themes. Like that is its essence. And that's where the plot comes and is derived from. And I don't feel overly comfortable comfortable explaining some of them because I don't have a lot of background in Japanese culture for sure. And I think generally we're used to, with a lot of movies I watch are like Judeo-Christian values, very like the savior, the Jesus figure. There's something in there. Moses and water and all these other things, and all these things seem like unique. I think this movie specifically because there's so much that it's not. I'm not familiar with the background or the mythology when it comes to it. So I started trying to do a little bit of the research, but I try not to speak too much over that cursory. But when it comes to themes outside of the religious aspect of it or some kind of cultural aspect of it, I think you have the importance of economic failure and abandonment. I know I read a bunch about the lost decade, which I knew about, but there's decades and decades of lost consumer issues. And then there's the right away, it's like you have to, if you're a little girl, you got over the bridge. If you don't have a job, you're not going to survive. You must insist on a job from both of these characters, from whoever you go to, get a job, get a job, get a job. So that focus. And then the shuttering of local places, like she's going to the theme park. I was trying to think if that was like an undercutting of like Tokyo, Japan. Tokyo, Japan. Tokyo.
Capitalistic excessism.
But I was thinking Tokyo, Disneyland. Like Disneyland came through and blew out all the local businesses, and this movie's kind of sponsored or spearheaded financially by the corporate like demons, and you're like pissing on them right from the beginning. I don't know if that's in there, but I kind of felt that point.
I like that though.
I really like that. The puke and I was writing puke a lot, but ejaculation, a lot of things being in and out of the body, and not indigestible. That's related to the environmental, also the humanity, survival, needing food, but like sustenance and gouging. The importance of names is a big one, and I know there's a lot on that. I did a little bit. I'll let someone else probably jump in on that. I know I saw the basics on Chihiro, and it's 1,000, and there's the characters, and I don't know Japanese lettering, so I'm not going to go too crazy on that, but I could see its importance. And then the standards, growing up, responsibility, facing your fears, not everything is great, and who to trust and who to rely on, and and being good, like goodness. Can goodness conquer? Which is actually kind of the final theme. I think that makes it more of a children's movie than everything else in the movie, because the rest of it is just like kind of torture. But that's what I would lean on. And then I just have here on the same thing with themes, the recurring motifs visually, but also later on is just bridges, streams, shadows, fire, and smells. Someone else mentioned the smells in the bathhouse, but the stinky food, the reek of human, the stink monster, and the baths with the herbs. So you've got a lot in there. So that's me.
Goody.
You said about names, but one of the common practices for this is the last I might speak about the prostitution is they would erase the names of the girls who came in. Because you want to dehumanize them, you don't want to know anything, or at least, especially the people in the power structure want to take that identity away from them and regaining your identity. But what's interesting about the family unit here is that Chihiro's parents obviously forsake her for materialistic pursuit or an indulgence pursuit. You have the witch, the madame, who for a very long time actually forsakes her child. Or materialistic. Yeah, she cares about it, but like that's actually a major plot point towards the end is she was distracted by that kind of pursuit of the two actually good characters in this to a certain extent are the spider guy who says, "This is my granddaughter." He's playing a grandfatherly figure to her, even though it's a lie. And also at the end you have the witch's sister Zidania, is that it? Something like that.
Zaniba, I think it was Granny,
Yeah,
and
Zaniba.
Granny and Grandpa, which I did look that up. A lot of it, it's like a Japanese commonality because they live with their grandparents. It's not that they're actually related, right? I don't know.
But the idea of a previous generation being keeping up that familial ties and actually giving the sacrifices for the future generations. The grandfather figure gives up his tickets for the train, and that the family unit is more important overall than the greed unit or the desire for material goods. So I think that's an interesting discussion. I think that comes through quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, you guys said a lot. Like, yes, it's I was gonna say it's sort of a classic, but this is not a complaint or like a mark against it. A classic coming of age, growing like loss of innocence tale that, be, in order to unfold that message slash theme, it has all these elements that are like some of which are culturally specific, right? Like some of which are not. Like they cross over, whether they're broad or narrow, or sort of things that are like maybe more applicable to a certain time frame and a certain like era, like you said, like a certain intention and aspect angle that like the screenwriter was trying to look at. But nevertheless, it's all wrapped around sort of a very like known and established template for like young girl comes of age, is confronted with again the big dark scary world and finds friends and uses her power of like true, like you said, true love slash compassion slash family ties to sort of come on top of it, and having that be sort of the, at the end of the day, like you said, Joe, like actual like, or the tail end of the message, so it's a bit of a positive spin on it there, even though she's gone through like a bunch of shit through it. Goody.
One is, so are we saying that the this movie is about the reaffirmation of the nuclear family unit?
Like it kind of like
And-
you could certainly take that from it.
Joe, you mentioned earlier that there's a lot about wordplay in this, and I did actually see a lot of arguments online on what was intentional wordplay and not, and it is fascinating. The thing is, I don't know Japanese, and it was very. And I did study linguistics, so it's very interesting to me to see how the characters in Japan could signify. Like, there's an argument that when she's named Sen, that's a reference to the price that she was sold. But
Little things like that.
other people argue that no, like it would require another character in there to signify that. So there's actually a huge amount of debate on wordplay in this. And again, I watched the dub version, so I don't even know if nor am I familiar with the language, so I couldn't talk. I'm interested to see how much intentional wordplay there was in this, because I actually think it was smart enough to actually attempt to do cool stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm sure it's there to some degree, but I mean, I'm giving themes a very strong one, if not the strongest part of this film. Like you said, Joe, sort of like is the engine that drives the entire thing, really. And yeah, it's done very well. And I think maybe because of the fact, and like that we all just said, like you can extract many of like sort of smaller threads, or at least a bunch of different angles that are all still perfectly balanced throughout it. That I think, again, it deserves a very strong one, and I'm going to give it that.
I agree with you. I'm giving it a 1. And the reason I'm going last is because I'm going to kind of tie this in with the antagonist. Because one thing I want to notice, and I cannot remember what they're called, the soot.
The soot balls, I think.
The soot balls. Yeah.
Dust monsters.
Yeah. But I mean, I had mentioned systems before. And I definitely took the exploitation of the worker, which again is not atypical for a Miyazaki film, where you have literally the workers, the people, the little laborers are literally pieces of soot, disposable. They're thrown what looks like the marshmallows from Lucky Charms, or the stars from the confetti, the cake, but they turn out to, hey, socialism,
No, I just remember that, and I'm like, when I saw that, I was like, are those Lucky Charms marshmallows? I actually the exact same during that scene.
Or the confetti sprinkles, and they're different colored stars. So, but it's definitely Yubaba is the antagonist insofar as she's the madam character. She's also the one who is the keeper of, and the most one who enforces the systems, this caste system, so to speak, which does fall into the line of consumerism, which does, if you take it that this is a brothel, falls into that. Coming of age, a young girl learning how to navigate the world, and you definitely have the different castes of workers, and like you said, Kimaji, who's the worker of the spider guy,
Spoiler guy,
the boiler guy. He is the foreman of literally the dirtiest job there. Everybody depends upon him. He is simultaneously regarded and forgotten, and his workers are pieces of soot who have a lot of compassion, they for the I guess we'll get to there when we get to supporting, but I find them very dynamic. But Yubaba to me so much is an antagonist. Is she is the symbol, she is the keeper of the systems that Chihiro has to navigate, that the other people basically take for granted. Like, this is our life, this is how we have to work here. Nobody ever really gives it a second thought. She comes in and kind of disrupts those systems and actually turns her child against her. Where, and you show how superficial those systems are. I mean, if we look at any politician, that, you know, when her when her baby's like, you know, if you don't, you know, be nice to Chihiro, I'm not going to like you anymore. You know, it's just, it's that simple of a thing. It's just, um, so I'm giving this a 1 because I don't think, again, I don't think that Yubaba is a villain in of her own right, but symbolically, who she is is what Chihiro and everybody else is rallying against. So I'm giving her a 1.
Yes, I mean, there's no other way to say it for me. Like, it's what she represents, of course, is the antagonistic force. Like, it's, to me, that's like one of the most obvious things. And yeah, it's well done. They're all trapped in this system that, like you said, either they've been in there so long or have accepted it that there's no other way out. And she's the one who keeps the cycle going. She's the one who also literally produces the contract for Chihiro, right? So like, there's that aspect to it
Takes
too.
the
So,
names.
yeah, exactly. So I think that's all definitely spot on, Chris. And that pretty much what I would say, and why I'm giving it also 1 because of the way it is executed, which is quite in a very quality manner.
I was gonna say she's scary as fuck. So like, you know, like Ian, I don't care what age you were, like old ladies with giant faces and huge noses and big warts and
Give grandma a kiss, Bill.
yeah, and like babies hiding under hundreds of pillows. Is that suffocating babies? I'm not sure how grandmas take care of that, but it's very horrifying. And then she's, you know, I've heard some mean things from, you know, children's characters, but I believe she offers to rip some arms off, rip some thumbs off, rip some other body parts off. There's a zippering scene where they zip the actual mouth. She's got powers. So it's like, you know, Wicked Witch, obviously. I think there's that easy connotation. You guys mentioned Alice in Wonderland. I thought more Wizard of Oz, most of the movie with the 2 sisters and the witches, because of that. You know, I mean, obviously there's the big characters in Alice. But yeah, it's a classic callback to true villains with, you know, there's a little hint of her having a heart with the child, but otherwise everything is about money, 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 and the gold and everything else, and abusing the workers. And yeah, you'll make a lovely, you're going to turn her into a lump of coal. So yeah, I mean, that's a 1. I don't even on the themes. I don't know if I said a 1, but obviously it was a 1. And I had one more point I wanted to think about. I had heard about the 1,000, and I was curious. You said the 1,000 was the price. I had heard that it was that she's like, that's her number, and that she's one of like 1,000 people. So like, just start numbering people.
Probably work both ways.
They don't get names, so it's similar. But I thought that was an interesting, like, because a lot of the people that you meet don't have names other than them, pretty much. And I don't know if the other characters have names, but just thought that was interesting too.
Yeah, I think it's all thrown in there as well.
I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right that it is what the witch resembles. What is the witch, the madame's name?
Kababa or something.
Yubaba.
Yeah, and nothing like, like everyone there is seeking a like finds out that money doesn't buy happiness. That it's really no face ends up forsaking his fool's gold in order to stay with the grandmother, who's because all he's searching for is empathy, and that the coldness of capitalism. I think, as you portray it, Chris,
is always antagonistic. Yeah. Well, I think it's 1s then for that.
Yeah, we have 1s. Yeah, I was gonna. Yeah, I mean, because even her child, who's under the pillows, you know, works as a reflection of her. He's more of an accessory. You know, I'm not saying that she doesn't.
100%.
There was last one point I want to make. You mentioned Wizard of Oz. Wizard of Oz started as an economic treaty too about power of the silver backed currency versus gold backed currency. So behind every good children's tale is a great economic treaty.
It's also all the birds and everything else, and the crows and the noises and all that sound. And her dress is very dark, like the Wicked Witch for sure. It's, it's and the big nose, everything is like the
More than a passing resemblance. Yeah, sure.
Yes, for sure. She had a green face. You might as well just call her that. So.
So it's ones all around, and Scott, will move to you with the protagonist.
All right, so Chihiro / Sen, as you said, when she sort of like has to give up her name, or her name is taken from her as part of the contract. And like I have in my notes, like at first, and maybe this is not maybe, it almost certainly is on purpose. She like starts off as just kind of like annoying, like bratty little girl, but like that's again a very standard behavior for these characters to have in these types of stories. And but then of course she gets much more depth to her. She is for sure, like we're seeing this all through her eyes. Again, she's down the rabbit hole, down the demon hole, if you will, and going again, getting thrust into a strange, scary situation, trying to figure it out, trying to make the friend she can, and finding companionship along the way. So I think she's a very good character. Like at least at the end of the day, whether or not you thought she was grading, like that's like I said, probably some of the point. But her arc is certainly a very complete arc, and she like she's a sympathetic character in all senses of the word, in the sense that you sympathize with her, and she is sympathetic to everyone else, like the most sympathetic, or at least one of, to everyone else in the character in terms of the story itself. So yeah, I mean, I'm giving her a 1. I think she's a well done, good character that makes sense, and again, a lot of the themes, of course, etc., is funneled and channeled through her as a character. So if those work, then she works, and I think they do. So I'll give it a 1.
I didn't like her ending.
Why? Because you thought it was cheaper or like a cop out or something?
I think that the parents got an unearned reward. And I understand it's a children's film. They couldn't have gone the path I would like to have taken it down with. Actually, I want to see.
She rides her pig parents away into the field.
She eats her parents for dinner.
I mean, I'm into the Grimm style fairy tales.
Well, there you go. Eat the parents.
But yeah, I think she's very engaging. I like that she never lost her sense of goodness in all of the horrors she saw, and that's what makes her a compelling character. And also, again, what brings the theme. So, go on.
I mean, I don't know. It's a standard prototype. I think there's nothing crazy one way or another. I think she's the wide eyes that you want to see this world. You're experiencing all this stuff through her, and I think if like myself, it reflects what your experience of the movie is, because we were talking a little bit about where did she even go? I guess it would be a spirit world. Like if this was an American movie, I feel it would have been like she's dead and she's crossing over and she's on the path to dying, and then she goes back over the bridge. Bridges and
like
tunnels.
A dying dream.
It's always dying, So to me, that it was like a different spirit world. I guess that was nice. I thought she was dead because she also was disappearing, right? So to me, the disappearing part felt like the dead. And if anyone watched Soul, which it's similar, like this kind of reflected into that too, where it's disappearing soul, disappearing being, but her nourishment was just eating once. She had to eat once. So I didn't understand kind of how she got into this world anyway. But overall, okay. I don't know if anyone watched the Japanese version this time. I watched a little of the Japanese version first, and then I did switch to the American, and I actually that voice I really disliked. I actually dislike that actress in another series. She was in Big Love, I believe.
Something else.
She has a really whiny voice in that, and so I think it just like triggered me. But overall, a soft 1. Nothing wrong with her. I assume we're not counting Haku as more of a secondary character, because I do think Haku is strong when he does show up, but I guess he's not there all the time. So
yeah, I'm saying exactly, like it's through her eyes, so I'm counting her solely as the protagonist. Is all.
Joe, you mentioned you didn't know how she got there. She was told to eat something handed to her by a carny pimp, and then woke up in the bathhouse. Like it's
so not a Lucy. What Lucy's the cigarette? What is it? What do you use, Scott, when you go to the bars? And what's
do you mean?
the when you put the no, just a joke. The thing, like, I don't know, whenever you move roofie, I keep saying loose
A roofie.
roofie, a roofie, yes, a roofie. I keep
A
saying
spiritual rupee, I suppose. Sure.
spiritual roofie, yes.
Don't question, just eat it.
Right.
It's yeah, I'm giving her 1 too. I mean, contextually, I got this movie for my birthday, sight unseen. I was working as a salesman. I was selling Volkswagens at the time I was watching this, and it was pretty low period of my life. So the systems thing really sticks with me because, you know, when she felt like she was disappearing, you're disappearing, like you're losing yourself, losing your sense of identity. And a small, you have to take in, I guess part of it is you have to take a small piece of whatever world you're in. For me, selling cars, I had to have like, I get up, did the dishes. My motivation for every morning was making sure I did the dishes, take a shower, go to work, play the role, pretend I liked Volkswagens. No offense if anybody likes Volkswagens, I'm a Honda driver. I'd come home and the first thing I'd do is shower. I needed to scrub the day off me. So I mean, thematically, I always identified with her. I mean, aside from, you know, the whole whatever childhood trauma any of us keeps into adulthood, the time I saw this film, I really was, you know, dual identities, so to speak. This is like about a year before I started working where Scott and I work now. So yeah, she's a very strong character. And again, you know, themes keeps coming up. I mean, this movie is
Well, I mean,
Joe, I
to be
think
fair,
you
yeah.
nailed it. This movie is themes.
as you said, yeah, most of the things in this movie are a vehicle for the themes, and Chihiro as protagonist is no exception. Is what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
You know, subconsciously, I assume you know that Audi is a Volkswagen brand. So in theory, your commercialism completely gets tied in because if you're working for Volkswagen, you're also
working for
Audi.
Porsche.
Yeah, and Porsche.
Porsche, Audi, and Volkswagen. Yep.
Yeah.
Just
And
point of trivia in my Welcome to Volkswagen class, the first thing you learn is like how to talk around that Hitler commissioned the Beetle.
all right.
I know I'm not allowed to buy a Volkswagen,
Yeah.
so I can
Th-
tell you that.
this
My
is a quick
grandmother's not
tangent,
allowed,
but
yeah.
I was like, has anyone seen SLC Punk? Because there's a scene in that when Matthew Lillard, he's like confronting his father. He's like Volkswagen, Dad. Father, he's like, son, it's just a fucking car, okay? Like,
It's the people's car. So
anyway,
Volkswagen.
Volkswagen. Yeah. I could go on about German cars, but we won't. and,
not
and the
the point.
connotations to it. But we'll move on to Ian with us. Huh? Well, my grandfather wouldn't go near a BMW because it was across the street from a concentration camp. And he's just like, they all knew what was going on over there. So my grandfather had a hatred and distrust of German cars. So
And that's fair.
Ian, would you like to tell us about the supporting characters?
Now, I'm kind of torn about this because once I started seeing Haku as the carny pimp who we're supposed to sympathize to because he literally comes back in almost shot up by a rival faction after trying to steal something from them. I liked what was her friend? Lynn? Was that?
Lynn.
Her fellow like bath worker, yeah.
Unfortunately, actually, in a way, because I did feel that Haku was older, I kind of wanted to see Lin and Haku get out together. But neither of them do. They're both stuck in the system. I don't know. It's this does have that Wizard of Oz, but more, the reason I compare it to Alice in Wonderland over Wizard of Oz is because of the fluidity of transition of supporting characters, where Wizard of Oz is accumulation of her friends as you go along. In this, it's more of her running into random people as she's progressing through this. So I didn't particularly think Haku earned a good ending, which he didn't have. He's still stuck in the system there. But even making him a sympathetic character irked me because of what he represented. But I don't know. I'm leaning towards a 0 now, unless someone makes a good case.
Well, if I may, I'll try to start off with one. I get what you mean, but he did change the system to a small degree. Like, you know, he basically renegotiated the contract at the end. So like that's some progress, I guess. But you're right though. Like the thing is, the cast is so huge, and again, I guess I'll just come back to the point that they all serve like some thematic purpose, whether one way or another, in some degree. So like taken collectively as a whole, while Haku may not be the strongest slash most, I don't know, like heroic one in that sense, it's sort of to me moot because each of the little like vignette characters, I guess we'll say, that she encounters like does represent something, and they all add up to a bigger element. Like the sum is greater than the parts, if you will. So that's how I'm viewing it, and that's why I'm collectively giving it a 1, not for any one specific one.
I'm going to make it. Anyone can explain to me the representation of those 3 heads? I'll give it.
They were former. I mean, I don't know if this is the actual answer, but my theory is like they were like former Haku like apprentices who crossed her and are now just cursed to be infinitely just downing heads, gluttonous heads.
I was gonna say I don't know about the heads. I feel like that's something Buddha, because I'm thinking of like I remember there's a statue, I think it's at Storm King, where it's like the head is being stepped on by the foot, and there's the 3-legged. So it kind of, I'm sure it's something honestly religious because of the coloring. The green also kind of made me think again of Wizard of Oz, but not having her face. She had this green like she has like the control of these green like the deteriorating heads, kind of. Yeah. But yeah, I was trying to think, you keep talking about the pimp part. I'm wondering on Haku, I kind of saw him even in your way of describing it. He's more of the person who, the bouncer, right? I don't think he's the pimp. Like I think that you have the Yubaba as the madam, and then you have like the person who protects the front door. That's their job, right? Like if you own a strip club, right? So that they kind of have to make sure they taking care of all of the people behind. If someone gets rowdy, he's got to get up, and if he's got to go out and do a mission to like take care of his the people under him, he's cursed to be there. And I think you said that at the end he doesn't get redeemed. I think he gets his name back. It seems like he's getting some control. I don't know. I think that is trying to say like the river is cleaned again. I'm not sure, but he has his river name or whatever that is. So I think he's a bit more redeemed than that. And I love the dragon stuff. I liked that, and if only that he brings out the best in her at the end of the movie, like the compassion, he actually derives that. So I give him credit for actually being a good counterweight, and otherwise it would have just been a whining girl kind of running through and being saved by everybody. I think that relationship kind of meshes it together. So, that would be my big one. I think for, we're missing a lot of other characters here. I mean, the Sitballs are mentioned. I love the Sitballs, No Face, and the music with No Face just alone. All of the weird frog patrons, and you're not sure which one's a frog and which one's a human. Are they all human frogs? Those duck things that look like giant fat ducks. It's like there was so much excitement of all of these things at the same time. Like they don't even know what to do with it. So to me, this is an easy slam dunk one because of just the variety and
sensory overload of them or something.
And it's nonstop. Even Zeniba, I know that it was a mention of the Zeniba part, but I actually like that part. It kind of slows it down and makes it the most humanistic, and it's like the counter Grimm's tale, the counter Hansel and Gretel story, where you go to the scary house and you go in, it's like, let's have some tea and figure this out, and then you go back home and it's okay, everything's gonna be okay. Like she's worried, and she gets soothed, and she has changed her garments, which that was a big thing. I think we did the name change, and I forgot to mention the garment thing, which is very important, that she became part utilitarian. She got to get her clothes back. She went back to Zeniba, and then she went back and confronted in her own strong space. So I know that got off of ancillary characters, but definitely a 1 for me.
No, yeah. You did a great job.
Sorry.
No. I mean, like, no, that was awesome, because again, the cool thing about the supporting characters in this is it kept her from being a Mary Sue. It's like she was imparted things and she learned from them, and she learned how to. So it was a cyclical thing. She would learn and adapt and move on and inspire. What I loved, Ghostface is probably one of my favorite supporting characters, if not my favorite, because to me, he is who she would have been if she had disappeared. He is He was just there. Everybody ignored him. She saw him. She let him in. He doesn't even have a voice. He, by himself,
Voice,
without
not
him,
a face, though.
without him consuming people. But getting to, I guess, my antagonist point, and to when I saw this, Ghostface only found a voice once he consumed.
It's no face, by the way.
No face. When I say Ghostface, no face.
Ghostface killer, I guess. It's
Yeah.
Killer. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why I keep calling him Ghostface, but No Face. I mean, he was aptly named No Face. He is the every person who gets lost in the system, and unless you find your voice gets lost unless you find somebody boisterous to adapt or to emulate, and that nobody paid attention to him until he became obnoxious and started doling out his fool's gold. And as you said, Ian, before, he was looking for empathy. He traveled with her and, first dispelled two of the people he consumed and then dispelled the frog, and then went to Zeniba, and that's where he found a home because she isolated herself. So she's outside the system. That's where he needs to be because he's always been outside the system. Didn't have a voice, was always overlooked. And again, you look at somebody like Lin, who immediately vilifies, Haku, immediately vilifies No Face. So I mean, he's basically he's like I said, he's probably one of my favorite characters. And he doesn't really ever say anything on his own except for going or whatever little thing. So I agree with you.
Sling Blade.
Slam dunk with one.
Change your opinion.
Yeah, I think you guys convinced me. Although I will also comment here. I read a fascinating article where Grandma Witch is actually evil, and all of the ending was an illusion for her being trapped in kind of a sweatshop thing. But I don't necessarily know if I believe that. I
That's
just
more of a stretch, a far-fetched theory, I'd say, but interesting take, I suppose. Either way,
desiring people who don't want that happy ending at the end. Bring down a heavy movie even further.
Do the rest of the time, that's going to be my answer for you.
was that one's all around for secondary since we convinced D?
Yeah.
When you recover, Chris.
Sorry. Because I have to announce Joe next for a dialogue. So Joe.
Yeah. This I think is the weakest part of the movie. There are some good parts of it. I just think a lot of times this is especially when you have so much going on. What are you supposed to say sometimes? So, and it's a sappy dialogue when they're intertalking. I think it's all the emotionality and the themes and the feelings. I do like the aggressiveness of it. I think it's more of a polemic feeling type, allegory, but I'm borderline. I lean almost to the 0 here, but I feel like the dialogue does drive some of it, but I do think it's more an action movie. So I'm actually going to go with the 0 now. The more that I think about it, it's and I want to say that we didn't watch the Japanese version, so I don't know if I got. I feel like when you watch the American version, you get this you might get a better purity of the interplay of words and some other things that go on, and that when they translate and they try to match the lips, maybe it's not the same vibe, but that's what I got out of. I'm going to go with the 0 right now.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, like on the fence. Like I could have kind of gone either way. I might be leaning towards maybe like a soft 1, but I'm not married to that. So you know what? I'm completely undecided, although somewhat underside. So with that, Chris E, what do you guys got on this one?
Well, I need to compare this to other children's movies out there, but also to the children's movie that they compare it to. And I'm trying to think back to what I thought about American Tail, which is one of the better ones. I think we scored that very well.
8 or 9 something.
Yeah. I nothing in it. To me, it felt better than what I expected children's movie to be, because in general, I have no expectations for anything but referential humor in a children's film. So this did have kind of an elevation to that. But I also want to say that if there was intentional wordplay in naming, and then there might have existed in the dialogue as well in the Japanese. And I think I want to give this the benefit of the doubt because it's a clever enough movie to have jokes and wordplay that I'm culturally unable to pick up. But I think it being better than average and hearing arguments from other sources that they do attempt to do it in there, I might have to jump over to a 1.
That's the one thing I don't think you missed was any jokes. I don't think there are any jokes in this movie. There
Well,
are maybe cute characters, but I think there are not any. The humor here is absent, and I think that's common. I think American kids movies are more heavy on the on this. And
I guess I was combining the fact of like wordplay and jokes.
Gotcha.
I didn't necessarily mean in jokes in the traditional sense, but in cleverness of dialogue.
Okay.
Anything, Chris?
Well, as I often said, dialogue is the easiest one for me because all it's got to do is be naturalistic. All it's got to do is not screw itself up. But in this, I mean, I happen to like the dialogue. I'm giving it a 1. But in this, when you have so much is told visually, so much is told once you get into the system. But I think the dialogue is really important because the 2 supporting characters that are really like, aside from the frog, that are least developed, that are important to Chihiro's world are her parents. And aside from them going there and being gluttony, it's their dialogue. It's, and I don't know if it's, because we were watching the dubbed, so I don't know if it's
Michael Chiklis, yeah.
Michael Chiklis and Lauren Holly, is it? Yeah, Lauren Holly. I don't know if it's their, bland voice acting or if it's just her parents. But I think there isn't a lot of time to develop her parents through action. So I think the dialogue, what they say to Chihiro, what they say to each other, because Chihiro's like, nobody's here. We're going to get in trouble. He's like, that's okay. Daddy's got cash and credit cards. It just shows, I mean, their dialogue really goes along with their actions for the short amount of time they're in the movie. So just because of the function dialogue services to develop them and how that affects Chihiro, that to me is an important thing. But I also like the dialogue. I mean, and part of it does go to the quality of like David Ogensteyer's doing Kamaji or somebody like that. Suzanne Plachette doing the Yubaba and Zeniba. But like I said, I quite like, it is a style of dialogue. It is a fantasy. It is this thing. There is a certain flow to it. There is a certain, just it's got its own dialogue in a film like this. And I think it does it well. But I think the dialogue does serve to develop characters that we don't really have time to develop. And I don't really care to know her parents any more than I do. So, I like the dialogue, but it also serves a purpose. So I'm giving it a 1.
All right. I think at the end of the day, like, I'm going to come down on a soft 1. Yeah, like your point about like, there's probably some hidden like wordplay / like, cleverness with that, like whether or not we like know it or because of the version we watched, at least I watched, might not necessarily have gotten it. But
Well,
I like that.
Trying to watch Alice in Wonderland in a foreign language. I don't know if it would work.
No.
Because,
I get you. So
I forget the author, but
Lewis Carroll.
Yeah, Lewis Carroll was so into
like wordplay and stuff. Yeah.
that a lot of it works for English language because that I could imagine the terrible tragedy. I know you're a fan of Dante's Inferno, Scott.
Yeah.
There's an argument over. There's thousands of translations
of it. Yeah, for sure.
The poetry down, and I feel that some of the characters specifically have kind of that feel that there's a lot more going on there, and I think it's earned thematically and stylistically that benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, like I said, I think that's where I'm going to lie, and like also like you said too, Chris, that while I may say that some of it can be a little exposition-y, but like you sort of have to have that stuff somewhere along the line to at least give the audience some kind of rules or like here is what's happening and why to an extent. So I think that stuff works more than it doesn't. So for those two things, it'll lean me sort of like I fall to the side of a 1 on dialogue, and that's where I'm going to score it.
Yeah, and that exposition is I think the 0 leader to me because I think it was like kind of I know it's fantasy, and maybe I'm not the king of fantasy. I don't know, but it's just like floopy boopy. Like it's if the wind spirit goes this way, and you put your finger up in the wind, and you put the water the right direction,
You
everything's.
have to have it.
And I know, and I got it, but I just to me, like maybe it's like the like screen craft, like screenwriter lover in me, you know. I know you guys use this as dialogue. To me, like if we're saying it's the script, this is a one because it's the story and the framing and everything else. But just dialogue alone, and I'm not even leaning into like the performers. I don't know if that's what is intended. I guess for Chris that makes sense. Like I like some of the voice performances, but I don't give that towards the dialogue. So I still think this is it's honestly my zero. If we were saying I could give another half from theme and a half from from style, you're probably gonna get there, but it's a zero on its own.
Nah, I hear you. I was pretty close, but yeah, I mean,
We've been doing this long enough that we're old men about our ways of scoring things. We're gonna move on.
We learned how to navigate the binary system.
Well,
We
to me,
invented
style to me is a 5 out of all these things, probably, versus like the script, the plot itself. Like, plots of some of these things are just, they're repetitive. So if you're going comparatively, I'm not messing with your scores. That's your thing. I'm not messing around with it.
Giving it a 0 here, though, and no problem.
Am I up for this anyway? So I might as well. Am I in style?
No, you were a dialogue.
Oh, okay, then I'm done.
I think Chris's style. You yourself won in style, didn't you, Chris?
Yeah. And I'm gonna, as an animist, I relate to this movie a lot. Miyazaki definitely comes from that because Princess Mononoke, definitely off the top of my head, deals with a lot of spirits. Being an animist, everything around you is alive. Everything around you, scientifically has energy. If energy is a spirit, to me, animism makes the most sense. So as animist, I love the portrayal of what we see. But I'm giving this a 1. If there's nothing else this film did right, and this film does a lot right, when Chihiro's disappearing and she sees the paddle boat come near her, and the way the music builds, because it's got the little chimes or something. As it gets closer, it becomes more of a march. It becomes more of a celebratory march, which didn't feel like what they were setting up. Once it docks, you see the little masks coming out and forming, and the music that's going on while she's freaking out, she's disappearing, and the music's going on, and it's such a celebration as to all these things. That scene is one of probably my favorite scenes. I mean, it's my definitely favorite scene in this movie. Definitely one of my favorite scenes all time. I think it is just absolute positive perfection. Overall, the music's excellent. Visual style, again, this to me hits all the right buttons. If there is some kind of a spiritual afterlife, I hope it exists. I hope Miyazaki's kind of connected to it. Probably sans the brothel, the brothel aspect, because as an animist and a socialist and an economic populist, I cannot agree with the way Yubaba sets up her structure. But by the same token, I love the style of this film, but the reason I picked style is because I really wanted to talk about that one scene. So I'll pass it on to you guys.
Take it easy. I mean, yes, of course, it's a visual, it's a literal and visual metaphorical feast. Like, it's amazing. The animation is fantastic. It's top notch. It's super impressive. And one of you mentioned Fantasia, and I think that's where the music as well comes in, because it does match the scenes themselves so incredibly well. And I won't say much more. I'm definitely giving the one, like you said, Joe, probably strongest, tied with themes, strongest element of this film, and I will give it a very, very strong 1.
So yeah, I mean, like you guys are saying, to me, the best part of this movie outside of the themes is the art. I am actually not a big impressionist fan, but I thought the way that they did it here, like there's the repetition of the Monet type stuff, right? You have the clouds and the lily and the bridges and the water, right? It's just over and over again. And it's like, these are things that are reflective of usually being beautiful. And in this case, I think you're not supposed to think like they're beautiful in an awful place, right? And it's like, this is really like a light versus dark contrast where like everything's kind of bright for the most part outside, but everything's dark inside. And so I think that really gets that from that visual and animation style. this is, and then I thought, coming back to the characters that we did for the, the secondary, I think this, the visuals of those just creations, just like, did everyone get to draw everything they ever wanted to draw and just put it in the brothel up on the third deck, hooting and hollering half
When
the
a frat
time?
guy in a shiner hat, yeah, fuck it, put him in there. He'll be up in the balcony.
And I mean, just the no face, just the actual, like, I know we talked about the expunging scenes, but all of those like type of scenes, like just the what came out of him and everything that's there and everything. It's like it's not just it's not detailed like with perfection, because it has that anime feel of like a little girl with pink cheeks, and that feels lazy as fuck. But everything else, and that's just because the style, everything else is just so so well done, and it just feels so influential in essence that it makes everyone else like step up their game and bring back, like, there was that lost Disney period, right? There was a high period of Disney in the mid 90s, and then it kind of fell off, and that's why this movie ends up winning, Academy Awards for best animated film, and no other basically non-Disney movie has ever done that except for this movie. That's how good it was and respected, and then gets it, universal acclaim. So I can't say much more than that. And No Face alone, we talked about a little bit, but I do think that's one of, between that and the music for No Face, like the sounds and each character kind of having a good sound there, I'm a sucker for that stuff. So one for this for me.
Right on.
I agree with everything you guys said. I just want to bring one apart. We talk about absurdity and level of detail, but there's a consistency in absurdity, and that's what's very important. Is that if you're going to make a fantastical role, it has to play by its own rules, and I think everything does visually, the way characters interact, the motivations, and all of that. And I think that the world that Miyazaki, is that correct? Yeah, Bill
Miyazaki,
is fantastic. So I'm moving in a very strong one.
Yeah, no, good point, and a good add-on, man. There you go.
So it's wins all around. And Scott, why don't you tell us if you're going to recommend this or not?
Hold on.
I was just, can I ask one more? I was going to say that I know you guys seem to be more of the and you mentioned Star Wars earlier, Scott. I was thinking that it really did feel like a cantina scene the whole movie with all the other characters, where it's like you go to it's like everyone is a different being in every single room. There's like 3 of each one always, but there's such like this diversity, even though they're all like frog based, it seems. And like water based, it's still like in the river.
Exactly. Like there's sorry. There's a thing from TV tropes called big lipped alligator moment, where it's like out of nowhere, like, but like a lot of like many sections of this movie are essentially a string of big lipped alligator moments, like, but that still makes sense overall in context. So yeah, I mean, I think that's sort of an extra, if not more amusing layer, at least a layer that you can still give it a lot of credit for on the style front.
And Star Wars is based on Hidden Fortress, was Japanese, so you're bringing the Japanese back from America, back from Japanese.
It all ties together, it really ties the whole thing together there.
It's a square circle, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you're saying, Chris, it is on me for recommendation?
Hold on a second, Ian. Did you have something to say before that? Okay.
Nope. Yep. Back to me. Yeah, I mean, yes, I recommend it. Good birthday pick, Chris. I was saying precast that, like, I'm pretty sure I'd seen it, like, if not all the way through, just most of the parts of it, but it's been a long time, and yeah, it fucking still holds up. It's still just an incredible thing just to watch and behold, really. And it's about 2 hours, I think, exactly 2 hours if I remember correctly, and so it just works. Like, there's a lot to love about it. Any like credit we took away is sort of like minor-ish, like nitpicky to an extent. So yeah, I definitely recommend it. And Spirited Away is still fucking great. So
as I said, this is I've never actually seen a Miyazaki movie otherwise, and I was very impressed. I guess I was also impressed that it was as not just as entertaining. I figured it would be very visually flourishing, and kind of felt in where I would be, but I just never stumbled on one and had a reason to watch it. So this is definitely a great, I would recommend it for all ages. But I do think it is a strange child recommendation. I don't know about some of the stuff. I think it looks cool, so it's not gross, but there are some, pretty bloody scenes. So I don't know if that's, just to make a note there. Like, there's definitely the dragon scene. Like, there's blood all over the place. So it's a little disturbing. So that'd be my only note, to make sure, it's not like for 5-year-olds probably, but as long as we're talking like 8 to 10-year-old, I think it's safe. It's like, how late on a scale from like 1 to 10, like, is this Mickey Mouse or Death Note? This is like, like a 3.5, so Yeah, I mean, for me, I'll be checking out Mononoke, and now that it's all on HBO Max pretty much, and you can watch the whole thing. Now's the time. So the availability's there, and I look forward to diving further into Studio Ghibli. I know we're just saying Miyazaki, but I want to give the whole
Yeah, for sure.
the
Right on.
whole place a mention out. Yeah.
Well, my parents showed me Gremlins when I was young, so.
Look how you turned out perfectly fine.
I saw Aliens in theaters when I was 7 years old, and my dad also took me to Sex Lies and Videotape.
Good for you.
1990. So there you go.
We're all podcasting now. So, but I had a special lady friend who was very much into this style of movie, and so it's actually painful for me to watch these films.
Not because of the film, because of your own personal
So
experience.
I recommend these films, but not if you have a deep, painful, emotional attachment.
Special lady friend.
But yeah, I enjoyed it overall, especially dissecting. I was really enjoyed dissecting this film for its dark themes, and that makes it great. Like again, I brought up American Tail before, bringing up the idea of the immigrant experience. It was a lot of fun for me to dissect that film. But I had a similar experience with this, so yeah.
Right on.
I chickened out of American Tail. I was going to do it. And I'm like, I can't remember what my emotional state was, but I'm like, I'm going to be crying all the way through the film and through the review. I was not there. But yeah, obviously I recommended it for you guys. It didn't click to me until one of the scores where I was going to my backstory that my mom gave me a bunch of movies for my birthday, and I think it was my 34th birthday. And this is one of them. So yeah, I recommend this. I got it on my birthday. I went home and watched it on my birthday. And 17 years later, is that 17? I'm 51 now. Yeah. So yeah, yeah, no. I highly recommend this film. It is a bittersweet film in a lot of ways, Ian. I understand there's sentimental things, obviously, that get me. There's a lot of wonder to it. And Joe, to your point, definitely check out a lot of Studio Ghibli. Another favorite of ours is Howl's Moving Castle, which actually would be interesting to do between the book and the movie, because apparently the book's very, very disturbing. So, that's Ones All Around, which Joe gave it an 8.
What does that leave us, buddy?
Okay. So Joe gave it an 8. Scott and Ian gave it a 9. I gave it a 10, which leaves us with an aggregate score of 9. You all gave plot a 2. Joe thought the dialogue was just below average, just enough for a 0. Otherwise, we all agree that this film lives on its themes and is propelled by its style, for lack of a better way of.
That's exactly the way you should phrase it. That is perfectly said.
So go out and watch this film. And gentlemen, does anybody have anything else to say?
I think that'll do it, my friend.
All right. Well, I've been Chris Morgan here with Scott Thurlow.
I'm going to go turn into a dragon and fly away myself. See you next time.
Jonathan Ian Manzer.
Well, have a good night.
And Joe Sior. Oh, God, I'm screwing up your last name.
Soria.
And
it's written on the side of the.
Yeah, there it is. I see, I don't have my glasses on.
Come on.
Sorry about that. Old man here. And welcome.
I know it's not good for the podcast, but it's for the visuals there. So
if you're watching that, it was quite funny.
Or watch the movie. It's worth it to watch the movie just to see hands and gold. So
yeah.
I almost got a black hoodie so I could pull my head down and go like this. It's over there next time, maybe.
You should have had Gelt or something to drop,
I've got Gelt.
Some kind of fake gold or whatever.
Spread it
All right.
out.
Well, everybody have a good night. Live long and prosper, and we'll see you soon.
Cheers.
Editing and engineering by Christopher Morgan. Music by Christopher Morgan. Check us out on YouTube and iTunes for the shows, and on Facebook and Twitter for updates.
Or Mott's?